her race ended quite early. Lap 22, crash occurred. It was pretty much down Suarez, a couple others entering turn one, got together when Suarez came up to the outside wall. We saw Hailie Deegan was there and just rear-ended him. Her car was done for. Looked like the Raider was all busted up. For Deegan, it's a really tough break, I got to say. For her first Daytona race weekend, we know we're going to Atlanta, so I have to ask, could missing out at Daytona have a big impact on her in Atlanta?
Well, if we were talking about this 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say probably not, because this is such a different style of racing. But what is Atlanta now? It's like a mini super speedway. So, unfortunately, I think having this back-to-back to start the season, it's certainly not a great way to start it. And, I'd actually, Hailie Deegan just posted her race vlog right before we went to record this. I know this will be up sometime tomorrow morning when the viewers are seeing this, but got a chance to get her comments on how her race weekend went. Obviously, not the way that she wanted to start her season or her full-time Xfinity Series career, but I think, as much frustration as there was, she acknowledged that, this is just the nature of super speedway racing sometimes, and these things can happen, and it's unfortunate. But like I mentioned, we're going to a racetrack that now races very similar to a super speedway, not entirely the same as Daytona, Talladega, maybe not quite as much overlap, but still much more overlap than there would have been the old Atlanta Motor Speedway, in terms of how the style of racing has changed since the reconfiguration. So, to not have those laps, to not have that practice and that seat time in a brand new car for her after 3 years of racing a truck, unfortunately, I do think that that's going to impact her at Atlanta, not having that seat time to fall back on from this past weekend. So it's an unfortunate deal, but again, very early in the season, and hopefully she can go out in Atlanta, just run all the laps, continue to gain experience, and build on that once we get past these two super speedway style tracks and get into the heart of the season later this year.
Yeah, the one thing I'm curious about, will Atlanta race sort of like the old Daytona track where handling will be a big issue? One thing I'm concerned with Hailie Deegan, she missed out not just on the seat time, but that communication with the crew chief, the crew, the pit crew, telling them what the car's doing, how to make the adjustments. They're going to be behind the ball game because essentially their first race, top 22, they were done. So they're really going to have to start working together, getting that chemistry right. I think this could not only be an impact for Atlanta, but probably the next 2 or 3 races. I think they're going to be a little bit behind compared to the drivers that are brand new and completed the races, getting the time in the track, and making the pit stops where they're adjusting the car. For Hailie Deegan, she's going to be learning all that in Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well, Joe. It's not just, the style of super speedway racing. She's with a new team. You got to think she's, working with a lot of new people. I don't know, maybe I suppose it's possible some people, engineers or crew members or whatever followed her to Motorsport. I don't have the crew rosters in front of me, but I would imagine almost everybody that she's working with is a new team member, new relationship in terms of her career for 2024. So, it's not just, getting behind the wheel and getting used to that style of racing. It's communications with your crew chief and, live pit stops and everything. I know they have those in the truck series, but everything feels slightly different when you're in a brand new car with a brand new team in a brand new environment. So to not have most of that season opening race, it's certainly not a good situation for her to be in. But again, there is plenty of time to make up for it later this year.